Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and it is that time of the week for the weekend review. Slightly later this week, I was away at the weekend, so back now in full action, so let's get back into it. This is the weekend review. First up, we'll have a look at soccer and take a look back at Saturday evening's Champions League final between PSG and Arsenal in Budapest. So of course, as we all know now, PSG have won the Champions League for the second year running, beating Arsenal on penalties. Look, it wasn't... I kind of had a feeling before going into the game that it was going to be a game that might have been separated by a goal, and that was really it in a sense. 1-1 draw. Kai Havertz scoring really early on for Arsenal. They held on for as much as they could, but I know the Arsenal fans have the old saying 1-0 to the Arsenal, but I don't think that only one goal was going to be enough to stop PSG from getting back into the game. They tried for as long as they could. The penalty, a bit controversial in a sense, but I do think there was probably enough of it. Champions League finals, we've seen down through the years that there's a lot of decisions in them sometimes that you wouldn't be too happy with on a Saturday afternoon in the Premier League. These European referees also always kind of have their own thoughts on what way a final should go for some odd reason. Even going back to the Champions League final in 2019 between Liverpool and Spurs, there was a handball given really early on in the game against Sissoko. That was given as a penalty to Liverpool, and the game was basically over after that. Was it a penalty? Probably not, but we always tend to see these kind of decisions in Champions League finals. Do I think it was maybe as bad as that decision? No, I don't think so. I think it was a foul on Kvaratskhelia, and look, the penalty was dispatched then by Dembele. Extra time, Arsenal looked to be the better team in extra time, in fairness, but obviously it went to penalties. David Raya made a great save for Arsenal, and of course then Eberechi Eze and Gabriel then obviously with the decisive penalty that he put over the bar. Look, in terms of a Champions League final in general, was it the best quality game we've ever seen? No, but like we were kind of saying in the weekend preview, that's kind of typical of Arsenal though, in a sense that they like for their opponents to play the game that they want. So Arsenal obviously scored earlier on and they defended for their lives, and just tried to, maybe if they had a couple of chances here and there, just tried to maybe nick a second goal, but they never really seemed interested in getting that second goal. The possession stats were off the charts for PSG. I think it was 70-something% they had at the end of the game of the 120 minutes. So I don't think Arsenal can begrudge it too much. They have this kind of a typical kind of way that they go into these finals, especially under Arteta. We saw it in the League Cup final against Man City, that I think on a one-off game like that, it's not the be-all and end-all if you don't win it, which everybody knows. It feels like it at the time, but I think a lot of Arsenal fans will just maybe feel that they could have went for it a bit more. And when they went up 1-0, kept going and kept pushing at PSG, but they didn't do that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that Arsenal fans are going to be most disappointed with. But look, PSG now, back-to-back winners in the Champions League, a real powerhouse there. We don't know what Luis Enrique is going to do. Is he going to sign on and stay with PSG for another while? Looking out through kind of teams across Europe, there isn't too many teams that need managers at the moment. Areola is supposedly going to Liverpool, and he's going to be the new manager of Liverpool. So that was kind of, from my own perspective, I kind of wanted Luis Enrique if he wasn't going to stay on with PSG. Chelsea obviously have Xabi Alonso. United decided with Michael Carrick. So look, he might want to stay on there now and really push PSG to maybe a 3 in a row. Would be insane for them to do. You never think that PSG a few years ago would have that in them, but you don't know now, and we could see the beginning of a true European powerhouse in this PSG side under Luis Enrique. Coming away then from soccer, and we go on to golf, where Russell Henley won the Charles Schwab Challenge in Fort Worth, Texas. The competition did go till the very end as Russell Henley did win by way of playoff, beating Eric Cole in Texas to claim his 9th competitive PGA win of his career. Both golfers, Henley and Eric Cole, finished up the competition on 12 under and went to the playoff hole. Henley would birdie to win the competition, whereas Cole could only manage a par, and that was that, and that was all she wrote for Eric Cole, as Russell Henley did win the competition in the end. As I said, it was Henley's 9th win of his professional career. This time he won by a playoff, of course, and it was his 2nd playoff win of his career. He's been involved in 3 playoffs throughout the competitions that he's played in his professional career, winning 2 and losing just 1. So he kind of has that bit of an edge to him. Now you could say that maybe going into the next tournament, that if he does go into a playoff round, that you might say he's going to be a tough one to crack, but a great win for Russell Henley in Fort Worth, Texas. Then in horse racing, we also had the Listowel Whit Weekend, which concluded on Monday after a superb weekend of racing. Henry de Bromhead was the trainer to beat this weekend and picked up the most wins of the weekend over the 3-day festival. On Monday, we saw the biggest winner of the weekend, Knockbrack Rambler, won the John B. Keane Beginners Chase on Monday at a price of 12-1. A huge win for the trainer Brendan Walsh of Knockbrack House, with Philip Enright in the saddle for that big win on Monday. Now we go on to the Gaelic football, where the first round of the All-Ireland Championship concluded this weekend. First up, we had Westmeath against Cavan. Westmeath winning that one by 4, continuing their hot streak in 2026 as they go in now to the winner's circle. John Heslin, the hero of the Leinster final, came on off the bench this weekend again and scored 3 points, which was obviously very impressive and very important in what ended up being a 4-point win. A player of note for Cavan who did very well was Paddy Lynch, scoring 1-4. A superb performance from him, really, but it just wasn't enough for Cavan, and they now go in to the loser circle, as it is. There were 6 points again this weekend from Westmeath's half-back line. That was very important and a huge part of their win against Dublin in the Leinster final. So that's going to be something, I'm sure, that towards the end of the year that they're going to really try and keep a hold of and keep making sure that that's a huge part of their attacking game. And you never know, come All-Star season, you might see a couple of the half-back line from Westmeath in the 15 for the All-Stars. Then next up we had Armagh against Derry, which was probably one of the quieter games of the weekend. Armagh went out that game 5-point winners. They were never really in any sort of doubt kind of throughout the game. They always had a healthy lead throughout the game, and Derry never really prodded them too much, in fairness, but it was a very professional win for Armagh in the end. Lachlan Murray scored a goal for Derry, and you thought that was going to be maybe the change of the game, but little did they know, 3 minutes later Tiernan Kelly then came up the other side of the pitch for Armagh and scored a goal to completely take the wind out of Derry's sails. As we said, you never know, if they didn't concede the goal then after that as quick, maybe Derry might have made a bit of a better game of it. But as I said, Armagh were never really in trouble, making it kind of a fairly professional win for Armagh, and they obviously then go into that winner's circle as well. Mayo looked like they finally kick-started their year at the weekend, as well, as they had a huge away win above in Monaghan. Kobe MacDonald scoring 1-4, just an absolutely unbelievable player. Another one there was Aidan O'Shea playing his 100th championship game for Mayo, an absolute legend of the game. Playing, you have a team there where you have the future in Kobe MacDonald, with what a 2-pointer as well that was, by the way, and then the likes of Aidan O'Shea. You never know, this mixture of kind of the past and maybe the future in this Mayo squad could be a massive helping point for them this year. That you never know, they could go on to do something that nobody really thinks. Monaghan had a bit of a late surge, kind of late on in the game, scoring a goal and 2 2-pointers to kind of narrow the gap, but Mayo had made such a decent gap for themselves that they were probably okay by that point. A brilliant win for Mayo above Monaghan. To be fair, going into the weekend, I didn't really give Mayo too much of a chance. I said that obviously they haven't really shown themselves in maybe an unbelievable light this year, and I kind of said that going into the game, especially above Monaghan, the way Monaghan played in the Ulster final, that it looked at Monaghan might show Mayo a few problems. But no, in fairness, Mayo came out swinging, and they're into that winner's circle as well. Then, of course, you had Dublin and Louth, which was in Croke Park. An unbelievable win for Louth, in fairness. Dublin are in real trouble. They don't look like themselves at all, in fairness. I know Ger Brennan being out for such a long time, it's hard to kind of really be too harsh on them, given his 12-week ban. But I don't even know if Ger Brennan was still there, that there'd be much of a difference, if I'm being completely honest. Louth winning by 3 points in Croke Park is just something you would not have said would happen 2 or 3 years ago. James Maguire scoring 2 goals, Sam Mulroy scoring 5 points. 2 brilliant footballers, Sam Mulroy especially, absolute great player. Cormac Costello again scoring 8 points for Dublin. I think for Cormac Costello, he's going to be feeling very aggrieved, I think, at this year, the amount of effort that he's put in and some of the scoring tallies that he's put up in these Dublin games. Even the Leinster final as well against Meath was another one. He scored his point total that day was superb, and I think he's going to feel fairly disappointed come the end of the year that not maybe enough effort was given by the other boys within the panel that he's shown. But an absolutely brilliant win there for Louth as well, as they go into the winner's circle. And even in this new phase, you'd always nearly have Dublin straight at the top of a winner's circle if it would have been around. But no, we don't see him there this time around. So that was the conclusion of the first round of the All-Ireland Football Championship. And now I will be talking about the Under-20 All-Ireland final that happened as well on Saturday evening at Croke Park between Kerry and Tyrone. Kerry kind of came out and they played a game of just brilliance, absolute brilliance. I don't think many people really expected it for that final to finish up and Kerry to win by 8 points. They were absolutely superb. They finished off a very long wait for that under-20/under-21 All-Ireland Championship title, which, as I said at the start of the weekend, that they hadn't won since 2008, and they also stopped Tyrone from winning 3 in a row in the same competition. So overall, a brilliant weekend for the Kingdom. The likes of Gerald White and Daniel Kirby are going to be maybe ones for Jack O'Connor to have a look at if he still has a few injury problems going in to the next round of the Football Championship. Gerald White was playing centre forward, absolutely superb on Saturday evening, and Daniel Kirby was in midfield scoring 3 points. Another great one to look out for the future. And to finish up the weekend review, at the time of recording this on the Tuesday, the draw was done this morning for the second round of the championship with the 2A and 2B fixtures of all basically the winner circles and the loser circles then coming out. So I'm going to quickly go through each of them and see what I think. First of all, Donegal and Cork. I think that's going to be a fairly run-in-the-mill win, I think, really for Cork, or for Donegal, excuse me. But I think Cork really will want just to put up a good performance for themselves in what will be a very tough away game for them. They worked hard to get into that winner circle, so I think a lot of their supporters will just want a decent Cork footballing performance above in Donegal. I think for Donegal, I think they just need to play the same game as they played really against Kerry and Killarney. Just play their own game, not try and let anybody kind of get into their own heads or anything like that, and I'm sure they'll be fine. I'll be very surprised if Donegal do not come out with the win there. Then you have Galway and Westmeath. Another tough one really to call, in fairness. There's just something about Westmeath, I think, this year. Galway beat Kildare last weekend, and I don't think it wasn't the biggest test that Galway could have had. Of course, you have to just beat who's in front of you, but in fairness, I think I've been a lot more impressed with Westmeath, and I think that's fair enough to say as well. The way they played in that Leinster final, and the way they played this past weekend, you kind of you just have a bit of a feeling for Westmeath that you kind of want to see them do well. In fairness, so I'd probably say maybe Westmeath in that one. I know it sounds absolutely mental, but you never know. And then going on Tyrone and Mayo. Hard to know there now as well, especially after the weekend. You probably before the weekend you probably would have said Tyrone written all over, but Mayo played so well this weekend that a lot of the 2A games are kind of hard enough to call. In fairness, I think Donegal and Cork is the simplest one to call really. Louth and Armagh is another one that's a bit hard to call. In fairness, like Louth, an unbelievable win this weekend in Croke Park, of course, as I said, against Dublin. So we don't really know. It's just a very tough one to call. They're going to be playing at home against Armagh, and you're kind of saying to yourself, like, are they going to fear anybody now? Like, I think if you beat Dublin, doesn't matter if they're poor or if they're great or the team of however many years ago. You go to Dublin and you beat Croke Park. You beat Dublin in Croke Park by 3 points. I think you're going to have the confidence to play up against whoever you're going to play against, and of course that's going to be Armagh now. Armagh, of course, were probably the most professional team this weekend in terms of their win. So look, that's another one we're just going to have to kind of look out for. And then the kind of losers bracket, then you've Derry and Meath. A tough one in fairness. I think when I'm kind of going, from a Kerry perspective, away to Kildare is probably one of the better ones that I would have been happier with, in fairness. I remember like going through the teams that were there at the time. When there was Derry, Meath, you wouldn't want to play either of them away. Cavan or Dublin, I probably would have been happy enough if we Cavan away. And Monaghan and Roscommon, I wouldn't have been happy with either of them away. If I had to pick two teams that I would have been happy with to go away to, it would have been definitely Kildare and Cavan. So to get Kildare out of that Newbridge, it's not going to be an easy game, 100%. It all depends on who Kerry have back for them. They'll probably have a few of the 20s up as well, as I said, the likes of Garrod White. Probably needed, if I'm being completely honest. As I said, we don't really know what the story is injury wise, but they might be needed. I think the rest of the games there are fairly decent. Derry and Meath, that's going to be a tough one for Meath, in fairness, to go up to Derry and face them there. I would probably say Derry. Cavan and Dublin. Cavan at home, you never know as well. That's another one of them ones that they're not going to be too disappointed with. They're going to have a kind of fallen soldier in Dublin coming up to your backyard. You're going to want to be able to put a show on, and that's definitely possible as well. And Monaghan and Roscommon is the Connacht champions against the Ulster finalists, only narrowly losing that one against Armagh. So that's another tough one as well, in fairness. Some great games in both brackets, it has to be said, and in fairness, they're going to be played on the weekend of the 13th and 14th of June, which is Saturday and Sunday week, as I record this. So look, some savage games in there. In fairness, there's going to be they said there's only going to be maybe about out of the games that are there might only be 5 televised, maybe 2 on RT and 3 on GAA plus. It's terrible, in fairness, especially with some of the games that are there. It always depends as well. You just know that they're going to have the likes of maybe out of all them games, which is one that people might not want to see. It's hard to call, in fairness. Derry and Meath, that'll probably be on RT, even though you could have the likes of, I think, Cavan, Dublin wouldn't be a bad one to have on TV there, and Monaghan, Roscommon. But look, that's the draw. It was done this morning. Let me know what your thoughts are about it. I'll probably be recording the weekend preview for this upcoming weekend soon enough. I could have a live podcast out as well soon, with the lads from DN Sports, who we do the GAA podcast with. So I'm going to leave a link to their socials as well in the end. I'm going up to Donegal this weekend into enemy territory, so we're possibly going to do a live GAA podcast there, talking about the rounds of games, the first round of the All Ireland Championship, and then talking about the draw as well, just a bit kind of like what I've done here. So we'll chat about it then. As I said, with the weekend preview, that'll be going out probably, I would suggest, maybe Friday morning or Thursday evening. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on to the video. If you could like and subscribe and share around the channel with anybody that might not have seen it before, who you think might have a bit of interest in it, that'd be a lot and massively appreciated as well. So yeah, thanks very much for watching the video, and we'll catch you on the next one.